This is Larry McDowell for Christian Press Daily News and Commentary. Today, I'm not reporting events, but taking a hard look at one issue that is having a great effect on Americans. In fact, on the world today, and that's gas prices. Often, the heads of governments get blamed for gas prices going higher, but more often than not, when you look at it historically, they have little or no control over world oil prices that affect these gas prices. As a historian myself, I've looked into this and found that only twice in the last 8 decades has the price gone up because of the actions of the President of the United States. And when you actually take a look at the prices adjusted for inflation, this is true. It is not a surprise that both times the faults were actions from a Republican president who did some action that did not take into account the economic impact of their action, including the Republican president who is in office today. So let's go back and take a look at it. Let's go way back to 1940. When you look at the price of gas with inflation taken into account, we're not paying much more now than we paid back in 1940 for gas. As you can see, although gas was only 18 cents a gallon in the national average in 1940, that comes out to $4.21 in today's money. Hard to believe that 18 cents is now $4.21. We are paying about 32 cents more today because of the closing of the Strait of Hormuz. Over the last year, we were paying a whole lot less than the 1940 value. When I was born in 1950, you got gas adjusted for inflation even cheaper at $3.73, which back then was 27 cents. It was even cheaper in Alabama, as I recall growing up. $3.44 in 1960 and $3.56 when adjusted for inflation in the 70s. In fact, it stayed about that price all the way to 1980. However, the actual cost was not 36 cents of 1970, but by 1980, even adjusted for inflation, is about the same, but the inflation was a lot in the 70s. As a result, we were paying $1.19. Americans were not smart enough to realize that although this occurred in the last year of Carter's presidency, it was caused by the same thing that's causing the jump in gas prices today. Iran. The revolution in Iran took a lot of oil from us. We were buying from Iran, we depended on Iran, and therefore the amount of gas available even got so short during the Carter administration that because of Iran, we had long gas lines. We had to start boosting domestic production, which we've done now. We were too stupid, so we had to blame it on someone, so we blamed it on Carter. Carter had nothing to do with it. Carter tried his best, but he had nothing to do with the fact that the people of Iran had had enough of a dictator and overthrew that dictator, and as a result, we were no longer buying oil from Iran. So, we had to blame Carter. It contributed to his losing the presidency and having only one term. So we decided, stupid as we are, we'd go ahead and elect a Hollywood actor who's praised by Republicans as being the greatest Republican president since Abraham Lincoln. Some even think better than Abraham Lincoln. When his Reaganomics passed on to later Republican presidents, caused several recessions. The recessions of George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump. This does not include the Reagan policies that stripped the military retirees of dental benefits and wasted money in pipe dreams in the space and defense departments with bad contracts. But we won't go into all that. So this is the first time that high gas prices were used to make a bad decision on the part of America. Let's look at Clinton. Clinton took over after George H.W. Bush and his recession. And we have pretty steady gas price from $3.16 to $3.27 with the dollar. And that's adjusted for inflation. The actual price went up about 40 cents in that day's money. So that's not bad for 8 years. Then we move on to George W. Bush. Looking at Junior Bush, we have a steady price adjusted for inflation of $3.16 to $3.27. Now, when you look at the adjusted inflation, it's not that bad. But this time, the actual dollar of that day went up $1.81 from $1.46 to $3.27. But when you take into account for inflation, like I said, it's not that bad. But the inflation was caused by Bush's Reaganomic economic policies. And it also caused George W. Bush's recession and the crash of 2008. This is the first president where you can actually see where the rise in gas prices, that $1.46 that I was talking about, well, $1.81, $1.46 to $3.27, because he started 2 wars. But unlike our current president, he actually conned Congress into doing it with false information about some nuclear activity in Iraq. Some pundits at the time thought it was an intentional move to raise the gas prices because a lot of the Bush family and their friends had oil stock, which went up with the gas prices. But I think that might be reaching. I personally don't believe Junior Bush was that smart. Prices for gas under Obama terms was high if you do not factor in inflation. If you factor in inflation, they actually went down under Obama. The inflation caused by George W. Bush, remember. They stayed at that level for the first Trump term until the pandemic hit and lower travel lowered the prices. Economic supply and demand, man, goes down, price goes down. Okay, the pandemic under Trump 1 kept gas prices low because the demand was low. And he looked good on gas prices, and he definitely took credit for those lower gas prices, but he had nothing to do with it. Then we get to Biden. Now, they appear to go up under Biden. But when you adjust for inflation, look at it. They really only went up 3 cents when adjusted for the inflation caused by Trump economic policies in his first term. So it's not on Biden. Now let's get to this new Trump term, Trump 2. Trump is the second president I mentioned that caused higher gas prices due to his policies. Like George W. Bush, who used subterfuge to con Congress into 2 wars in the Middle East, Trump lied about the nuclear ambitions of Iran. But unlike Bush, he decided to start a war in Iran without congressional approval, disregarding the Strait of Hormuz and paying the price. You can attribute, or basically we're paying the price, you can attribute this huge jump in price, a real now dollars of $1.30, directly to the inept war policy of Donald J. Trump. However, this can be traced back to his first term, when Trump threw out the carefully crafted treaty with Iran that ensured Iran would not have a nuclear weapon. So here is Trump saying Iran's going to get a nuclear weapon, so we need to bomb them. He bombed them last year. He said he stopped their nuclear program. Then he bombed them again this year, wagging the dog so he can look good politically. But unlike Venezuela, he didn't look good after this one, because Iran did what every general for the last many decades since 1979 have told all previous presidents. Don't mess with Iran. They can close the Strait of Hormuz and cause oil prices to skyrocket. Did he listen to that? No. So when he threw away that treaty, he set himself up for this war he started, because after Trump threw out the Obama Accord, Iran began rebuilding their nuclear program once again. So he bombed them last year, he bombed them now, because Netanyahu asked him to. Now, Netanyahu has asked every president since 1979 to bomb Iran. And the only one stupid enough to do it is Donald J. Trump. Now we have gas climbing to a high of $4.58 a few days ago. I think it's down to $4.53 today. When we elect a person as president who has no ability to handle macroeconomics, that's world economics, and no experience, you get what you vote for. However, America voted for a guy that went bankrupt 6 times. Shame on us. Through this tour of gas history, we often saw rises in prices that were not reflected on presidential policy. But 2 Republican presidents caused large jumps due to their inept starting of wars in the Middle East that were completely unnecessary, even the Iraq War. That and the economic crash of 2008 brought a Democratic president for the next 8 years in Obama. Poor handling of the pandemic brought Biden for 4 years. Yet Americans made the same mistake again. This unnecessary war with Iran will do the same in 28, assuming he doesn't get impeached or removed using the 25th Amendment in the meantime. Will we learn this time? Republicans have a historic ineptitude when it comes to fostering good economies, causing all but one of the recessions and, of course, the Great Depression. If we only voted for our own economic self-interest, we'd quit voting Republican, you'd think. But that's just one man's opinion. But one who looks to God's word as a minister of God and always asks, what would Jesus do? Certainly the party of the billionaires and white supremacists versus the party who takes care of people's welfare and health is an easy decision. I reach out to my fellow Christians and ask them to be careful where you get your news. The deceiver is busy out there. This is Larry McDowell for Christian Press.